こりゃ千客万来にゃ。
Hello, I'm the final boss. I mean, I'm not the final boss. I mean, nice way we're having, right? At first, it seems like we're just gonna open up with the usual intro.
今日はみんなでお出かけです。考察ありがとう。
But no, instead we were just suddenly introduced to Komi's time travel powers because, yeah, as if this god baby wasn't OP enough, may as well just put her on her own tier at this point. And in case you couldn't tell by my Future Gadgets Lab badge or my train ticket, yeah, I am a bit of a stickler when it comes to time travel stories. But other than maybe Miracle Leap, this franchise has kind of burnt me with their attempts at my favorite sci-fi concept. Not only did they often break their own established rules, but they also failed to properly incorporate the concept into their narratives. In fact, for a show like this where magic and fantasy have reigned supreme, this feels about as out of place as Rick going to Fruity Land. Anyway, they just rather casually all decided to go to the past to learn about Ginger and his actions.
そう、ここがゆいちゃんたちが生まれるずっと前。考察ありがとう。
I also put emphasis on that all because this is really going to turn out to be a really stupid decision. Now, to be fair, they did establish that something as powerful as time travel could only be used once, and it even left the Fox Fairy KO'd for most of the episode. And they also at least established some rules, like the obvious time paradox stuff and all that, but they didn't restrict them from interacting with people of the past because...
元の時間に戻るときに コメコメの力が過去の人から記憶を消してくれるパム。
You know Zeno is looking at this plushie and saying, you know, you're kind of game-breaking. Also, way to remove one of the most gripping taboos used in almost every time travel story ever. Hell, they may as well have just revealed who they really were too.
20年前のたくみくんのお母さんです。考察ありがとう。
Now granted, there was at least some decent visual storytelling here, when Yui met her late grandmother, and her friends cheered her up by using some makeup because, as that other new iCatch showed, they had to sell some of that leftover stock from Tropical Rouge. Nah, but seriously, it was at least a nice moment before we return to the usual stuff.
ヒカルくんはゆいちゃんのお父さんになる人です。考察ありがとう。
Yeah, sure, the characters don't bring it up, even though they really should, but isn't that the narrator right there? Can we just not do this for this episode at least? Anyway, they were setting up a farewell party for Ginger, who apparently hadn't been feeling well recently. Gee, I wonder if that's foreshadowing anything. Yet, even though he was the man of the hour, everyone just kept on praising Yone for making the Maneki Neko the symbol of their town, which I'm sure won't come back to bite them in the ass later. On that note though, Ginger was... Okay, but seriously, even though it's pretty damn obvious what sort of twist they're poorly building towards, I honestly hope it's not going to be the case because otherwise, no, just no. Seriously, if there's anything cringier than an old man who talks like Ferris Nyan Yan, then please don't tell me about it for God's sake. Anyway, through him, they met the past versions of the fairies, minus the fox, instead being Kivat II, Komi the First. And again, I have to emphasize how this has already failed as a time travel story if they're not even going to apply some of the fundamental rules.
過去の自分との対面 SF だ。
Anyway, Ginger reaffirmed that Takami's dad might have stolen the recipe board, and yeah, I'm sure y'all can trust the crazy cat man who dresses like a shocker grunt. Now again, to be fair, there was at least one interesting development that might get some decent payoff later, as we learned how he seemed to have close ties with Yone, so maybe that'll at least lead to some sort of heartwarming moment later. And really, I think I felt more between these old people rather than these...
ヨネさんは素敵な言葉をいっぱい持ってますよね。
Aw, isn't that so nice? I mean, after all of those granny quotes, how could you not feel the connection between these two? I mean, just remember her last quote, which is like, Actually, legit question, what was her last quote from her granny? Like, backloading a lot of the show's plot has been an issue with a lot of recent Precure series, but just feels especially egregious here. In this moment, I should be feeling for Yui finally getting to meet her beloved late grandmother, but with how inconsistent the writing of the show has been, I really don't think we've gotten a good sense of how much she's really meant to her. At most, we got episode 34 when she reflected on her time with her, but that's about it. She hasn't really quoted her in a while, and everyone else's character arcs have taken precedence as they need to start wrapping up the show. I think what they're trying to do is something akin to a Kamen Rider series, not Kabuto, but we'll get more into that at the end. In that sense, I don't think they were trying to do Hakuto here in spite of the obvious similarities, but yeah, it's also pretty late into the game to introduce a new theme of passing down things to the next generation. This might have worked a lot better if we got an episode like this much earlier into the series, like near the beginning, but then I guess we wouldn't have gotten some of these endgame twists, and again, I think they wanted to emulate another show.
その頃現在の美味しいなタウンでは
Add 2.
考察ありがとう
But yeah, Secretary launched an attack while all of our heroines were stuck in the past. Wow, it's almost as if it would have been a good idea to leave at least a couple of cures behind, huh? She also seemed to somehow know how they detected when food fairies were in danger and that they were out of range as a result. Gee, I wonder who could have told her about their equipment. Anyway, because of our heroine's inability to form away teams, Takumi had to solo Diobazo and actually managed to hold his own for the most part, and it actually would have been pretty cool if he had defeated it on his own, but alas. Back in 2002, our protagonists were wrapping things up with Ginger, who said he couldn't fix Rosemary's pendant. Because now they decide to enforce some time travel rules, even though that wouldn't really affect the time-space continuum, especially if they're just going to erase everyone's memories. Again, this would only make sense if they pull a twist that we all know they're going to do. Anyway, before they left, Ginger set up a device that would collect all of the hearts in town, which was the thing that required Pom Pom and Mem Dragon's memories to be sealed, as it needed to remain secret from everyone, including themselves. So how would they know they could use it? I mean, yeah, seeing Ginger's wallet restored their memories, but look how long that took. Not to mention, what would have happened if Rosemary lost the wallet? Also, did our protagonist just so happen to come on the day Ginger originally decided to do this, or did their encounter with him somehow trigger it, which in a way would also create a bit of a bootstrap paradox and—
The answer is don't think about it.
Yeah, as if I didn't already feel nothing when Komi the First sacrificed herself, now I'm just confused on top of it. But yeah, the Fox Fairy made a rather meaningless sacrifice just to create a device our protagonist probably never needed because, let's face it, the bundles have never been that much of a threat, and really, this'll probably just blow up in their faces if they actually pulled the obvious twist. Also, I guess Kaming Sudoku gave birth to her daughter? Honestly, this looks more like the Digimon rebirthing process. Anyway, they returned to the present just as Takumi was having his ass handed to him, and the resulting fight was actually pretty good since this is a plot episode, but I was more distracted by the real OTP of this show.
そのデリシャストーンはシナモンが持っていたものだわ。やっぱりあなた。
Ding, ding, ding! What do we have for her, Johnny?
Seriously, this show has more pacing issues than Tomo Takino in a marathon. Anyway, the episode ended with one more narration that we won't count as it was at least relevant and kind of touching as the narrator revealed that she was Yone, though I will still play this clip.
What a surprise.
You know, at this point, I think this franchise really needs to stop doing time travel stories. This story was especially bad, as not only did they break a lot of the fundamental rules of time travel, but it also felt like a cheap storytelling tool to set up a bunch of endgame story elements that they couldn't figure out ways of doing it naturally in the show without bringing in an element that wasn't properly built up. Key among them, of course, being the relationship between Yode and Yui, which, yeah, what even is her character at this point? I'll be honest, I was just frustrated with the scene between Yui and Yone, as I did want to get some of those feels, but I couldn't because, one, they've done a very poor job building Yui's character. Just calling her grandmother doesn't impart to us how much she actually meant to her, and how she's shaped her as a person, and thus, all this talk about passing things down to the next generation comes off as nothing more than platitudes. Now, if they had actually done this story early into this series, it actually might have resonated more, but that brings up my second issue. I think they were trying to recreate the climax to Kamen Rider Kiva very poorly. Yeah, along with co-writing Kabuto, Kiva was written by Toshiki Inoue, whom the head writer Saoka Hirabayashi, who also wrote this episode, seems to be a big fan of, with him having produced a light novel she wrote. Thus, I think she tried to do her take on the titular rider Wataru and his late father Otoya, ignoring the fact that the latter was a constant fixture in the show, having become a rider of the past. The show constantly switched perspectives between the two so that we could actually get to know both of them before they eventually crossed paths when Wataru traveled to the past near the end of the series and learned about the sacrifices his father made to ensure his son's future. I guess they also tried to do that with the Fox Fairies, but that rang even more hollow, as not only did we learn nothing about the first, but the two never even interacted. And that's the thing that has really frustrated me about this season. It expects us to feel things, but has done none of the work to help build or establish this stuff, and just expects us to shut up and watch. Why would all of the Cures go back to the past and leave their town in danger? Because shut up. Why establish time travel rules and yet break some of the fundamentals? Because shut up. Why make it so obvious that Ginger is Goldath? Because shut up. And yeah, on that note, God, this old man is cringy, and if he really does turn out to be the final boss of the series, I'm not going to be able to take him seriously at all. But yeah, at this point, I don't care how good some of the animation or direction was, as yeah, there was some genuine talent behind it. If the writers aren't doing their jobs and are just making references to marginally better works, then all I can do is look up at the sky and just look forward to the next season. I'm sure most of you have already heard the news, so I'll just come out and say, it seems like next season, we're going to be taking things to the great blue yonder. To celebrate, I did do my first short for this channel, but of course, this channel's bread and butter has always been overly analytical video essays, so do look forward to a hopes and predictions video later this week, where we'll mainly discuss who we hope will be the main writer of Hirogaru Sky Precure. So look forward to it. And until then, don't fare off for now, my friends, and why do I smell burnt bananas? Oh, come on, y'all. It's just the normal microwave for now.